Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 23rd of September of 2024. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the South Donetsk direction where the battle of 2024 has begun. The Russians launched full-scale offensive operation with the purpose to attack the city, the stronghold of Vuhledar, from at least 4 directions. The Russians currently are attacking from the western part of the stronghold. The Russians managed to cross the river of Kashlagach to the north of Pavlovka and most likely managed to establish complete control over the farms. Furthermore, the Russians are attacking towards the city of Vuhledar from the southeastern direction. As a result of clashes, the Russians entered the residential part. Basically, they have already entered the territory of the city itself, and the Russians are trying to encircle the Ukrainians from the northeastern direction with the purpose to cut the main supply roads between the city of Vuhledar and Bagayavlenka. So what is happening right now? Let's discuss in details. First, we got the video of how the Russian vehicles were moving in the western direction. This video confirms additional Russian progress, and furthermore this video confirms the updates that were published by different mappers, including pro-neutral mappers and Ukrainian as well. So in this video we can see the process, how the Russians landed their infantry along the tree line and captured this. This video was geolocated exactly in this point. Later we got updates from different mappers that this territory was also captured. As for the farms in the southern part, we have update on the map according to mappers, but we haven't received anything that can confirm this. Just some posts, several posts from pro-Russian sources that this information is correct. Now let's talk about the eastern part of Vuhledar. Once again, the Russians managed to enter this part. This is well fortified territory. I know that Ukrainians are saying that the Vuhledar direction was under complete responsibilities of the 72nd Mechanized Brigade. This brigade was a core brigade in this direction, but a few days ago, more than 5 days ago, the Ukrainians decided to replace this 72nd Brigade by the Force of Territory Defense Brigade. The Russians are saying that the 72nd Brigade was sent to Selido with the purpose to stabilize the situation. But telling the truth, as I understand, around a week ago, the Ukrainians realized that they have no chances to hold their territories and their lines around Vuhledar, so that's why they decided to replace the forces of 72nd Mechanized Brigade by the Force of Territory Defense Brigade, because the Ukrainians understood for more than a week ago that no chances to hold, and it's better to save experienced, well-trained and well-fortified 72nd, highly motivated 72nd Brigade, and to replace them by low motivated Territory Defense Brigade that have been mobilized recently. Anyway, the city would be captured, so it's better to save good soldiers and to waste bad soldiers. This is the logic of the Ukrainians. So as you can see, as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to get as close as possible to the city itself. All these updates that you can see right now in front of your screen took place somewhere in the evening of the 22nd of September and in the morning of the 23rd of September. We haven't received anything during the previous day. Most likely there were very heavy clashes, and I believe that we need to expect additional updates tomorrow in the morning of the 24th of September, and I would not be surprised if Russians entered the city itself. Now let's talk about the northern flank, about northeastern flank, about the coal mine South Donbas number 3. As you can see, we have adjusted the map, and there was a video published today by the sources how the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces who were retreating. So the last Rega forces that were running away from the northwestern part of South Donbas coal mine number 3 towards the next constructions. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map in contested area, but as I understand, during the upcoming night, the Russians will take the mine completely and will raise the flag in the most worst northern part. So most likely tomorrow this territory will be colored in Russian favor. So the battle for Vuhledar is about to be finished. This was a very long and very bloody battle. The Russians, since the beginning of the special military operation, launched at least 4 attempts to take under control the stronghold. Most of these attempts were repelled by the Ukrainians. Every single attempt was repelled by the Ukrainians. The Russians suffered significant losses. Before the 5th attempt to attack, and this is exactly the 5th attempt to attack, the Russians decided to use a bit longer way to attack. First, the Russians established control over Novomikhailovka, then the Russians secured Konstantinovka, then the Russians secured TO524 road, and now the Russians are about to take on the control of Vuhledar itself. So that was the biggest battle, the longest battle during the special military operation, the longest one. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Kurakhova direction where the Russians continue their offensive operation. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start, and the most interesting are coming from the territory to the north of Tsukurne. This morning we receive updates from different mappers like neutral mappers and pro-Ukrainian mappers that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to improve their positions to the southwest of Ukrainsk and to the south of Ukrainsk itself towards the town of Girnyak. Later we got additional updates that the Russians improved their positions to the northwest of Ukrainsk, and as a result of clashes the landfill and the terikon of Selidovskaya coal mine was captured. So all these territories were colored as a gray zone or contested area, and this right before we start making videos, probably a few hours before we got the video confirming that the Russians captured this territory completely. In this video we can see two Russian personal carriers, vehicles that were going along the road between the town of Ukrainsk and the railways. This is an assault attempt. Then the Russians reached the intersection of roads and entered the fields. Then the Russians safely and successfully crossed the fields without any resistance from the Ukrainian side, without any minefields and so on. And in the final part of this video we can see how the Russians reached the railways and landed infantry in this area, and the Russian soldiers, the Russian stormtroopers, began clearing operation. So now let's return back on map and let's discuss in details how exactly the Russians were moving for better understanding. The video started in this point. The Russians were moving along this road first of all, then the Russians reached this intersection of lines and moved further in the western direction through the fields. And when the Russians reached these railways, they landed, one vehicle landed in this part and the second one landed in this part. After that, the Russian vehicles safely returned back to the sea, to the town of Ukrainsk. So this is a very interesting operation, and based on this video we have adjusted the map in Russian favor. And the most important that this video shows us that currently the Russians are trying to avoid clashes for the town or the village of Tsukurne itself, and the Russians most likely will try to move further in the western southwestern direction with the purpose to encircle the Ukrainians who are currently located in Kremenная Balka, Tsukurne, Girnyaka, Kurachovka, Ilinka, Berestki, and so on. So this is something like strategical plan of the Russian forces to attack towards Kurakhova water reservoir and to encircle significant number of Ukrainians that are currently located in this cauldron. And most likely this is exactly what is going to happen. So that's why we expect that during the next few days we're going to see additional intensifying of actions from the Russian side on the line Maximilianovka and further to Kurakhova. Obviously, if Ukrainians lose this battle, this is going to be the biggest and significant defeat. Now let's move further. Let's talk about the original Pokrovsk direction. We have some changes on the ground, some icons. The Ukrainian sources published the video how they managed to discover the movements of the Russian soldiers exactly in this point, and then when the Ukrainians discovered the Russian positions, they began bombing and attacking them. So this video confirms that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to improve their positions to the west of Gornyak and to take under control first buildings and first constructions of the village of Nikolaevka. Furthermore, we have additional updates from different pro-Russian mappers, and the Russians are saying that as a result of clashes, they managed to take under control the village of Krasny Yar completely. So this territory was captured by the Russians as well. Significant progress. The Russians are moving further in the Pokrovsk direction, and we see that Ukrainians can't show anything, can't show any resistance to the Russians. Now let's move further, and we are coming to the Toretsk agglomeration. From this territory we have just two icons, but they are very important. Let's take a look at this icon first. According to information we have, as a result of clashes, the Russians established complete control over the landfill and terikon of the coal mine by the name of Nova. So this territory was captured. And we have another very important video, and I would like to point your attention. The video is coming from the territory of the main stronghold of the armed forces of Ukraine on the territory of Toretsk. This is the main stronghold. If the Russians are able to take this stronghold under control, the Ukrainians have no chances to control the territory almost until the villages of Katerinovka, Kliban, Byk, and Nelipovka. So if Ukrainians lose Toretsk and this stronghold, the next defense belt, the next defense line where the Ukrainians will try to stop the Russians is this one. And as you can see, this is very far from the current situation. So let's discuss the video. What is this video about? And in this video, we can see that somebody destroying the biggest construction on the territory of the citadel. This is very important video. From one side, we can say that the Russians destroyed this building with FAP and so on, but this is not true. This construction was destroyed by the Ukrainians. And now the most important question, why the Ukrainians destroyed the highest building in the citadel when this territory is still under complete Ukrainian control? To receive the answer to this question, it's better to go back to the Vadiana, to the coal mine South Donbas number 3, and I'll remind you that a few days ago, the Ukrainians destroyed the highest building in this area as well. So it's not like Ukrainians destroyed, the Ukrainians mined this territory, and they were waiting when the Russians entered this construction, and then the Ukrainians were planning to destroy this construction with the Russians inside. But the Russians managed to discover the trap, and they destroyed first because they understand that there are no chances to secure this territory. And if we return back to Toretsk, we can make a conclusion based on this video that Ukrainians destroyed this construction because the explosion is coming from the bottom. So the base of construction was mined and then destroyed, and the Ukrainians destroyed this construction just because of one reason. The Ukrainians are running away, and now they're destroying the strategical points with the purpose do not let the Russians to take them under control. This video is 100% proof that the Ukrainians have already or about to abandon their positions in the central part of Toretsk, which confirms that most likely during the next few days, probably by the end of this week, the Russians will be able to take under control this territory, and this is going to be a significant disaster for the armed forces of Ukraine. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Kupiansk direction. We got a lot of very interesting updates from this territory as well. The Ukrainian sources published the video how they were repelling another Russian attack. I'll remind you that a few days ago the pro-Ukrainian sources, Deep State, reported that as a result of Ukrainian counterattack they managed to cut this island. Now the Russians regrouped and decided to restore control over the lost territories, and as a result of counterattack this island was restored and Russians basically entered the village of Tarskoye. I'll remind you that during the previous week the Russians mainly were concentrated on this territory between Nevska and Makeivka, and as a result of very heavy clashes the Russians established complete control over this territory. Now we receive report that the Russians managed to maintain the territory between Nevska and Makeivka, and most likely, and based on this attack, we can make a conclusion that now the Russians are trying to reach the river of Zhiribets along Tarskoye village to cut this territory also in two pieces. The first piece is the territory between Nevskaya and Novosadovo, Terny, Yampolovka, and the village of Tarskoye itself. So this is the first part, and most likely this is going to be the primary target for the Russians for the next few weeks or 1 week. They will try to take this territory under control by attacking from the north and by attacking the same territory from the south. After that, the Russians will be able to, or will have possibilities to begin the final and probably the last battle for the Serebryanka forest, this territory. They will try to attack in direction of Yampol, they will try to attack in direction of Zarichne with the purpose to begin the third battle for Liman. Obviously, this is going to happen this year. Now let's move further. Let's talk about the north in Kupiansk direction, where the flower of Pishana is continue blooming. Today we have additional updates, additional changes on the ground that confirms Russian progress. In this video we can see an attempt from the Ukrainian side to counterattack the Russian positions exactly in this point. The Ukrainians managed to reach the line to land infantry and troopers, but they were counterattacked by the Russians and destroyed. This attack took place exactly in this point. Later we got another video how the Ukrainians were FPV droning the H Russian positions along this tree line. Based on these two videos, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor. Furthermore, we have report from different mappers that confirm our conclusions. The Russians are getting closer and closer to the city, to the village of Krugliakovo. A lot of military experts, based on these videos, geolocations, are making conclusions that most likely during the upcoming week the Russians will make first attempt to attack in the direction of Oskol River with the purpose to cut this territory into as fast as possible. But based on the geolocations and based on the experience of battle for Zhelannaya, Kamyshivka, Novogrodovka, Veselaya, the Russians in this case didn't move further towards Pokrovsk, but before attacking Pokrovsk, the Russians first were moving from Avdiivka to the west. When they reached Novogrodovka, the Russians decided to move further in the southern direction with the purpose to maintain the line of combat contact and to defeat the Ukrainians to the south and to create maybe a cauldrons or something like this. So just based on this experience, and we can make a conclusion that most likely the Russians are not going to move further in the western direction. There are significant number of fields and fortifications that basically are already unprotected or have a very poor defense possibilities in face of Russian attack, and most likely during the next 2-3 weeks the Russians will try to attack in the southern direction towards the village of Lazova from the north. Furthermore, the Russians will try to attack the same village from Stelmakhovka with the purpose to take under control and to force the Ukrainians from the fields to fall back towards Boguslavka. And if the Russians are able to maintain this line and to connect Mesazharovka with the Peshchane and along this territory, this will allow the Russians to improve their positions along the river of Oskol. And every time the Ukrainians send additional reinforcements and reserves from Barovo, let's say, to the territory of possible Russian attack, everything would be destroyed while moving on this supply road. The Russians will try to create these two death roads, one from the south, another from the north, and this will allow the Russians to destroy a significant number of Ukrainian reinforcements and reserves that can be sent in this direction, and after that the Russians will move further in the western direction to take under control these territories. So I see this like this. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Kursk direction. We have a lot of very interesting updates, and the most important are coming from Malaya Loknya. Most likely the Ukrainians managed to encircle the Russian soldiers on the territory of this village, because today we got another batch of geolocations that confirm additional Ukrainian progress with the purpose to encircle the Russians completely. For example, yesterday we got the videos and the geolocations from, let's say, on the 21st. On the 21st of September, we have some geolocations here. So the Ukrainians, based on the geolocations, were moving closer and closer, and now we see that they managed to finish the encirclement. So most likely during the next few days, the Ukrainians will try to attack in direction of Kruglinka, Stara Sorochina. The Ukrainians will attack Pogribki, Novaya Sorochina. The Ukrainians will make another attempt to attack Malolokny from the south, and of course the Ukrainians will try to attack Malanoklo from the north. The Ukrainians will not try to take this territory under siege. They don't have time for this because the Russians are pushing, and the Russians are increasing their pressure from hour to hour. The main artillery activity of the armed force of Russian Federation is taking place in the village, around the village of Martinovka. The Ukrainians still hold their lines, but I'm not sure that the Ukrainians are able to do this for a long period of time. They need to take Malolokny under control to release forces and to stretch them between the lines. The situation is very difficult, and the let's say the situation can be resolved within hours, not even days. Now let's move further. Let's talk about the village of Veselaya on Glushkova direction. The Ukrainians managed to improve their positions a little bit. The Ukrainians were attacking from the south in the northern direction, but the vehicle was destroyed exactly in this point. So the Ukrainians are moving. They are moving very slowly, but they're moving. And the most important, we continue receiving a lot of updates from this territory, and all these updates are showing the movements and redeployment of Ukrainian forces from one side to another, which confirms that they continue the improving of security. It's not been improved yet, but most likely the Ukrainians will try to do this. For now, the progress is very poor for the Ukrainians, and they paid significant price for this, but they're not stopping. They're continue doing this. And now let's talk about Ukrainian plans. A lot of plans, plan A, plan B. You know that today everybody was writing about Zelensky plans. For example, we have some short notes from Ukrainian plan. And the first thing is, if Biden does not support the plan of victory, this is plan A, we must continue to live according to plan B. Any negotiations with Putin will fail. We are currently planning a second summit, and it looks like the Russians will not be there. There is a new plan A proposed by me. We are definitely changing the current course. So another important statement, another important thing that Zelensky described and told about his plan A and plan B, and this is very important. He said that Ukraine will continue to live according to plan B if Biden does not support our new plan A. Later, he added that Ukraine has been living under plan B for years, since plan A, proposed even before the full-scale invasion, provided for preventive measures and strengthening the country, but the partners did not listen. So what Zelensky told us? He told that he proposed plan B, the plan B, before the beginning of the special military operation. And he told us that Ukraine has been living under plan A for years, since plan A proposed even before the full-scale invasion. He's saying that plan B, Ukraine has been living under the plan B even before plan A. So what does he mean? First of all, once again, Ukraine is going to blackmail Western countries with the capitulation. Basically, plan B is the configuration when Ukraine returns under the area of influence of Russian Federation. And he's saying that Ukraine has been living under Russian influence in the sphere of interest of Russia for years before they provided plan A for the Western countries. So once again, Zelensky is going to Biden to tell a few things. Either you join war with Russia, or we surrender, we capitulate, and you will lose everything on the territory in Ukraine. Furthermore, NATO and the United States of America will suffer significant political losses and reputational losses as well. So this is his plan, because he understands Ukraine will not be able to survive even by the end of this year without proper protection from some global country. And that's it for today. Military Summary Channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.